afternoon. My name is Lexi Gleason, and I am the Program Associate for the Quality of Life Grants Program at the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation. As you may know, the Quality of Life Grants team provides informational webinars at the beginning of each grant cycle. In addition to these webinars, we are now also very excited to offer a series of shorter videos that dive deeper into some of the aspects of our program and application that our grantees have the most questions about. We hope that you'll find these videos helpful when you're applying. But if you have any further questions about our process or what I'm going to talk about in this video, please feel free to email qol@christopherreeve.org for further information. This video is going to focus on how to properly fill out our budget template and narrative. So let's get started. To make things as easy as possible for you all, we have provided a direct download link right on our application. Now, we do slightly edit the budget template between cycles, so it is extremely important that you make sure to download the budget right off the application to make sure you're using the most up-to-date version. Some try to upload older versions of budgets they filled out for previous applications, but we really ask that you try to avoid doing that. If you upload an older version of the budget, there is a chance that your application will be eliminated on that basis, and we really don't want that. To download the budget, click the download template link, which I've highlighted with the red arrow on the screen. The Excel document will download, and then you can open and save it onto your desktop. Once you've opened the Excel doc, you'll see the top section that requires you put in your organization's name, the proposed project's name, the amount you're requesting from the Reeve Foundation, and finally the total project budget. For today's demonstration, I'll be leaving the organization name and project name blank, but please make sure that you fill in these very important lines on your own budget template. All of the information in this section should exactly match your application and budget narrative, which we will get later in this video. The main section of the budget is broken down into personnel costs, equipment, consultants and contractors, supplies, travel, and other costs. There are two columns, total cost and amount requested. You'll want to put each budget line item in their related categories and make sure that you fill out both cost columns. We need to know how much each item is compared to how much is being requested from the Reeve Foundation. And this is one of the most important and most common issues that we see on application budgets. If you do not specify the exact amounts and the budget line items that the Reeve Foundation funds would support, your proposal may be denied. Let me give a quick example of how to fill out the budget template for an adaptive sports program that's requesting $25,000 of a $77,000 total project budget. So let's say this organization is applying for a power soccer program. They're requesting funding to add to their power soccer chair fleet, hire a coach for 10 weekly practices, purchase a few additional supplies to help run the program, travel to tournaments, tournament entry fees, and some administrative costs. Now, the personnel section lists a program coordinator whose salary is $50,000 per year, but I'm not going to request funding for any of that. So I put their salary in the total cost column, but I left the requested amount column blank. In equipment, let's say they're purchasing 4 power soccer chairs at $3,000 each. Under the budget line item, I wrote in the type and number of chairs that are being requested at their individual cost. I wrote in $12,000 under the total cost column. And I want to make sure I point this out because we see a very common error on applications here. If you're requesting for more than one of the same item, the total cost column should be the sum of however many you're requesting funding for. So in this case, I'm buying 4 chairs at $3,000 each. So $12,000 goes in the total cost column. I'm requesting full funding for all 4 chairs. So the amount requested column, I wrote $12,000 as well. And finally, for this one, I wanted to highlight and show all of you that you should indicate which items you're providing vendor quotes for. If you do have a vendor quote, we have vendor quote uploads available on the application, and I encourage all of you to provide as many vendor quotes as possible. Under consultants and contractors is where I put the hired coach because they are not a member of the organization's staff. They're an outside hire to consult and provide soccer workshops for program participants. If this person were already in the organization's staff or were being hired onto the organization's staff, they would be listed under the personnel category. As I mentioned, they're hiring this coach for 10 weekly sessions. Let's say that each session costs $500 for a total of $5,000 for the 10 sessions. But this organization is only requesting $3,000 for the 6 sessions. So I wrote in the job title and relevant session cost information in the budget, And again, I listed the total cost and the requested amount in their respective columns. All soccer programs need equipment such as soccer balls, cones, and chair guards. I've listed each of these out separately, noting the quantity and cost of each individual item. The soccer balls and cones could have also gone under the equipment category as well. I just wanted to note that. For travel, let's say this adaptive sports organization owns their own bus to transport their players to tournaments. Power soccer team is traveling to 4 tournaments for a total of 446 miles. You can request up to 56 cents per mile when driving. So 446 miles at 56 cents is $250. I listed the entry fees and requested indirect costs in the other category. So now I finished the main portion of this budget template. Now in the next section of the budget is where you will put any additional sources of funding you have for your project. In this case, I have the adaptive sports organization covering $30,000 of the additional $52,000 necessary. They have secured $12,000 from individual donors, and the final $10,000 they need to complete funding for the project is pending from another corporation. It's always extremely helpful to fill in this section, especially if you have project budget that's larger than what's being requested. We want to know how much funding is already committed or is expected to be committed to the project, because it helps us identify whether it's likely the project will be able to be implemented or not. If you're requesting the full project budget amount, it would make sense for that section to be blank, because you are asking the Reeve Foundation for all of the funding. And finally, the summary section at the very bottom will calculate using formulas we've already entered into the document. So please do not edit that section. You do not need to do anything in the bottom section. As a matter of fact, please do not edit any of the sum formulas throughout the document. It really can make things quite messy on our end. Avoiding the editing the sum formulas on the sheet would be extremely appreciated. And those formulas are found in all of the subtotal lines on the budget. Okay, so now I'll go through our budget narrative quickly. Our budget narrative is also downloadable straight from our application right underneath the budget template upload question. And again, we do ask that you please download the narrative straight from the application each time and not use older versions. The budget narrative is where you will explain all of your requested budget items and go into further detail about each of them. So here's what our budget narrative looks like once you've downloaded it. You can see that the top asks the same information as our budget template: your organization's name, project name, amount requested from the Reeve Foundation, and the total project budget amount. Again, please make sure that these match what's on your budget template and application. So everyone fills out the narrative a little bit differently, but the most important thing that you need to take away from this video is that the narrative needs to exactly match your budget template. If it's not listed on the budget template, it should not be listed on your budget narrative. If the narrative lists things that are not on the budget or vice versa, questions are raised. And it does make things tricky for us when it comes time to award these grants, because we have to spend extra time reviewing the documents. When there's issues, we have to send them back to you to fix them. And we have to make sure that everything matches and ties before we can make any awards. So if you could all help us out and just make sure that those two match, that would be very much appreciated. And you will appreciate it too, because we'll be able to get you those funds faster when we don't have to spend time fixing the little things. Okay, so now I'd like to show you a sample budget narrative that matches the budget template I showed you earlier in this video. Now, the way that I like to fill out these narratives is by bulleting items within the categories they're being requested. So for personnel, I added a bullet point and wrote what the program director's job duties would be. Now, I highlighted this writing in red because I wanted you all to see it. I indicated that the program director's salary is $50,000, but none of that amount is being requested from the Reeve Foundation. You should indicate how much you're requesting from the Reeve Foundation on each bulleted item, even if it's $0. Now, because I'm not requesting any fringe benefits for the program director, I've written NA next to the fringe line. Fringe benefits can be requested for personnel, are based on the application's established formula, and are only for the percentage of time devoted for the project. It is important to explain what is included in the benefit package and at what percentage. And these costs should only include the fringe costs of the organization's staff and not those of contractors or other third parties. Moving on to equipment, I listed the power soccer chairs, including their pricing information, and gave a little bit more about how they would be used in the program. Notice that I clarified that these chairs will not be given permanently to any athletes and that they would only be used for programmatic use or weekend loan for tournaments. This eliminates any questions that the chairs would violate any of our gifting rules. I did the same in the remaining narrative sections, wrote in all of the budget items and detailed the quantity, price, total price, and a little bit more information about what each of them would be used for. Notice that I didn't need to write paragraphs for each. A simple line or two explaining the necessary information is perfect. Now remember, there is no one exact way to fill in your budget narrative, but the main takeaway should be that the only information you should have listed should also be on your budget, and make sure that you include all of the necessary information like price per piece, total price, and a clear description of how each budget item would be used for your program. If you're purchasing any equipment or supplies, make sure you clarify that they will not be provided as gifts. And again, the budget narrative should exactly match what's written on the budget template. So that is how to fill out your project budget and narrative for the application. If you have any specific questions about anything I discussed during this video, as always, please feel free to reach out and email us. Our email is on the screen, qol@christopherreeve.org. You can also find all of our program and application guidelines on our website, www.christopherreeve.org. Thank you all so much for watching. I really hope this video has been helpful to you, and we look forward to reading your applications in the future.